The integrity of the data is that certain values, certain data can only be stored in a certain type. For instance, numbers and so on. If you want to store the month as a number, you can set up a rule that it has to be between 1 and 12.
Okay, so that's, in a way, it's connected to what you talk about, the inconsistencies earlier on.
Yeah. We'll get back to the integrity a little bit later. And also it's data independent. You can store just about anything you want to in a database, and it's very easy to access the database. You can use different programs, or you can write your own programs to access.
Okay, and I think there are also some other topics you could discuss, that it's perhaps easier to administrate data in a database. There are tools for backup and these more practical things.
That's more like from the administrator point of view. So.
Okay. But in theory, it should be possible to do all this in file system, or at least less of it. But then you have to write.
Then you have to write some very advanced programs around it.
So in this case, if you are using a database, you can utilize all the software that is in the database management system to maintain and your data.
Exactly. So what is a database? Well, a database is a collection of registers with the following qualities. Data is shared across several different systems, so that means that it's very easy to access data. It can be stored on just about any platform, so you can reach it from Unix, Windows, Macintosh, whatever.
And the thing that makes this possible is this standardized language that you are using to communicate with the database management system.
Yeah, exactly. And another quality is that the database is well organized. That means that there are very rigorous rules on how to store the data, right down to what type of data it is, if it's integer, floating point numbers, or text, or anything else.
So if you are storing your data in a file, it's hardly any control at all what kind of data you are storing in it.
No.
So that's a major difference here.
And also a database has centralized control over the organization's data. So you have one central point that you set up the system that controls all the data. You have just one point to administrate, not several, if you have a file system.
Okay.
So the database manager that we have mentioned several times is a collection of programs, actually. And the database manager makes it possible to define, or rather create something in a database, add something, extract, remove, or change data.
Okay, so the first thing when you define, you could say the schema of the database. What type of data you are going to store, and then when you use add, you actually input the data into this schema.
Exactly. When you define, the structure and the types of data that you want to store.
Okay. So the terms you have here, create, insert, select, that's the term used in a specific database language.
Exactly. We'll get back to the SQL language in a later lecture.
Okay. And I think that SQL is something that you have come across in previous courses, or exactly we know that you have come across it. You have used it for making queries, like this select from where queries. And in this course, we will come back to this SQL language. What we'll go a bit deeper into it than you have done previously.
So the database language, as we said, is the SQL language. For relational database, that's called SQL.
Yes.
It's short for structured query language. And to be precise, it's not the entire truth, because in the 70s, when this language was created, it was called Structured English Query Language, or SQL. But because it was already a registered trademark, they had to shorten it to SQL. So to now it's known as the Structured Query Language. So with SQL, we can define and manipulate the content of the database. We can administrate and we can uphold the security of the database.
So SQL, that's in a way it's linked to the relational type of database. So this language cannot be used for for an object-oriented language.
Not a strictly object-oriented, no.
And the reason is that SQL is in a way it's restricted, and an object-oriented database, it can do a bit more than a relational database, and these extra things is not handled by the SQL language.
No, because it was written for the relational database system. So,
yeah.
And I just want to point out that you can do just about anything with the SQL language. Usually when you use a database management system, you have some graphical interface. You just point and click as you're used to in Windows. But everything you can do with the graphical interface, you can do with the actual language.
Okay.
As we said, the relational